All right, so our warm-up today, we're writing equations of lines. So I'm going to start with line A. There's two things I need off of this line in order to write an equation. I need a y-intercept, which is -2. And since this is kind of my notes, I'm actually going to write that down. Y-intercept is -2. And then I need a slope. Now, A definitely has a positive slope. As I move from left to right, I'm going uphill, so that's good. And then I just need to find a good couple points to make a slope triangle out of. I'm going to go with these two here. And I need to count rise over run. So my rise is 2 and my run is 3. So my slope is it 2 over 3 or 3 over 2? 2 over 3, rise over run. And we said it was positive. If we have our slope and our y-intercept, then writing the equation is very, very simple. We just got to get those two things in the right spot. Y equals, it's always slope first before the x, and then y-intercept at the end. So 2/3 x minus 2. You guys got that down? All right, how many people had that one correct? Good. Okay, and if you didn't, that's okay. Are we good on where your mistake was and how to avoid it? Does anybody have any questions about this one? All right. Line B. First thing I notice about line B is that it is going downhill from left to right. So my slope is going to be negative. I'm going to need a slope triangle here. Let me find a couple good points on line B. I'm kind of liking this one and this one. That's 2 and 1 for my rise and run. So my slope is -2 over 1, and I would probably just write that as -2. The other thing I need for line B is my y-intercept, and it appears to be at 1. So my y-int is 1. So my equation then is y equals slope is -2, and then x, and then +1. Y equals -2x plus 1. All right, did anybody forget to put the minus on their slope on that one? That would be a very common mistake. Did anybody write it as 2 over 1 instead of just as 2? That's okay, that's not wrong. All right, now line C and D, I want everybody's attention up here because these ones are simple, but they're easy to mess up also. All right, so I'm going to pick a couple points on line C. And this is a kind of a different question than I've asked you before. Look at these 2 points that I picked on line C. And my question for you is, what do they have in common? Do they have the same x coordinate or do they have the same y coordinate, these 2 points? They both have the same y coordinate? You guys agree? Doesn't every point on this line have the exact same y coordinate? What y coordinate is it that they all have in common? Every point on this line has a y coordinate of 4. So the equation is just y equals 4. We don't need we could put a +0 on there, but 4 + 0 is just 4, isn't it? Yep. So we could put it on there, but it's not necessary. There's no x in it though, at all. There's no x in it. It's just y equals 4. All right, now this is a really weird one. Look at line D. I'm going to pick a couple points on line D. I've actually got 3 points on there. And my question to you is the same. What do these 3 points all have in common? Do they all share the same x coordinate or do they all share the same y coordinates? They all have the same x coordinate. In fact, every point on line D has the same x coordinate. What is the x coordinate that every point on line D is going to have? -2. So x equals -2 is my equation. So when you're dealing with horizontal and vertical lines, the equations are actually very simple. It's either y equals a number or x equals a number. You don't have to worry about slopes and y-intercepts or anything like that. You just write y equals a number or x equals a number. The tricky part is remembering which one it is. And if you can remember to ask that question, What does every point on this line have in common? That'll help you determine whether it's x equals or y equals. So every point on this line has the same x coordinate. That's why it's x equals -2. Okay. All right. This last one was the easiest one because they gave us everything we needed to know to write the equation. The equation is just y equals -2x plus 3. I didn't need to draw it or anything. We've got all the information there. All right, let's check these 3 at the bottom. We got y equals 2x plus 3. That's really 2/1. And that's a positive slope. So I'm going to draw my little positive slope blueprint going uphill here, slope triangle, up 2/1. My y-intercept is here at 3, so I'll draw my first point at 3, and then from there I'll go up 2/1, up 2/1, back it up and go the opposite direction, and then grab a ruler and draw that line. So here's my slope triangle up 2/1. All right, part G, this is kind of weird because they don't have a number in front of the x. What is the slope going to be? It's -1, which is the same as -1/1, right? So for this one, our slope's going to be -1/1. It's going to go downhill from left to right. And it's going to start on the y-axis at -5. So I'll start at -5 here. Make sure I'm going down 1/1 to get a negative slope. Please double check. What do you need? Oh, yeah. Please double check when you're drawing your first couple points on a line that your slope is going the right way. We're continuing to have lots and lots of mistakes with that throughout the day today. All right, final one here. The slope is pretty straightforward. It's negative. It's 2/3. And for this one, we'll be starting at a y value of -1. Then we'll count down 2/3, down 2/3, and back it up a little bit to get a couple more points. Gets us that line. Okay. Double check and make sure if you flipped your slope on your graphs, that's okay. It's okay to be making that mistake now, but we need to learn from it and learn to catch ourselves making that mistake in the future. All right. Any questions on any of those? I think it'd probably be a good idea for us to get some quick notes into our packet about y equals mx plus b. If you flip the page over, you'll see a page that has it's blank at the top and it's graph paper down at the bottom. It's like this. We already did our part of our learning logs on slope. We're going to go down here and do some notes for y equals mx plus b. So let's just label here to start off with. What does m represent when we're talking about a graph? It's the slope. And what does b represent when we're talking about a graph? You guys writing this down? It's the y-intercept. Now, we can also use y equals mx plus b to talk about a situation. Do you guys remember what m represented with the situation, like a tile pattern? It's how much we're adding or subtracting. We called that the change. And what did b represent when we're talking about a situation? The starting value. There's another one at the other end of the hall if you want to. Okay, that's fine. Sorry about the line. All right, I think it's a good idea to do some examples in here. So I'm going to put an example on mine. You decide if you want to do that or not. I want to write an equation. We'll just make up something with some small numbers in it. Let's go y equals, I'm going to do a negative slope, -2/3x. Let's go +1. And I'm going to sketch this graph here. So if I were drawing this line, where would the first point be that I would draw? The y-intercept, which is at 1. So this would be my first point. And I like, when I look at my notes, if I can't remember something, I like seeing lots of arrows to kind of remind me what goes with what. So that +1 told me where I was going to start on the y-axis. And then the -2/3 is going to get me my slope triangle. So from there, I need to go rise over run 2/3. So if I go up 2, now I have to choose which way to run. Do I want to go 3 this way? Is that going to give me a negative slope? No, that would be a positive slope. So what if I did up 2 and over 3 this way? Is that going to give me a negative slope? Yep. So that would be one of my points. Or I could go down 2 and over 3 this way. And I'll go ahead and draw my slope triangle here and label that, just to kind of give myself a reminder later for when I forget exactly how to do this. So this was my 2/3 here. I think examples are good. In fact, I'm going to do one more example because these ones kind of trip people up sometimes. I'm going to go y equals x. Let's go minus, I don't know, 2, x minus 2. That sounds good to me. Where's the first point I'm going to draw? -2 on the y-axis, which is right here. Again, draw an arrow so I know where that came from. And then the slope on this, sometimes this trips people up because they're like, there's no number in front of the x. But there is, it's just invisible. What is that number? Slope is 1. And we could also write that as 1/1. So from this point, I need to do a slope. It needs to be a positive slope, up 1/1. Up 1/1, and that'll get me a few points both directions. And I think that would help jog my memory if I had trouble. And the nice thing is I've got some good space off to the side here. If I wanted to add another example in, if something else tricky came up, I might think about copying that down there. Might actually save this space for when we have to deal with this with tables. So, all right. Thank you guys for your attention. I'm going to talk about now what we're going to do today. So